So, since we're going to be able to do a couple of different coaching sessions, I think it's probably a good idea to start out with like maybe some like goals and stuff like that. And you already mentioned that, like, you know, the big things you wanted to improve on was kind of macro cycles, supplier blocks, getting a handle on the different types of aggression, especially different cheese and like proxies and all ins, and then PvZ as well as like big focuses for us to kind of cover through the coaching.
Yeah.
Cool. Um, stylistically, do you think of yourself as like more of an aggressive guy, defensive guy? Is there any like pro gamer you maybe kind of emulate the most or copy, or a style that you feel like you're most excited to play?
Um, Normally I play defensive. I guess the best example would probably be a stats sort of person.
Awesome. The shield of ire.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, that's a good idea to have as a model if we want to be a wall. You know, him and Showtime, the guy whose nickname is literally the Wall in Europe, are our two best people to kind of look at to learn stuff. So hey, I've got the document. I'm sending that a message to you on Discord. So just get that one open, and I'm going to be writing notes as we go. This is, of course, your document. If I write things in a weird way that you don't make sense to you, you just let me know. But essentially, the idea is these are your notes. So I'm always going to have this open when we coach. It allows me to. Oh, what's wrong with my keyboard? Hold on a second. Oh, I think I've spilt coffee on this keyboard too much. One of my keys doesn't work. That's fine.
Uh-oh.
No worries. There's just one button that doesn't work. It's an old
Oh
second
yeah.
keyboard that I'm using on this laptop, on this computer.
Yeah.
All right. So style, defensive, stats and fire inspired. We've got those things from the bottom, which I'll copy paste up here to the top. Make sure we keep those as big kind of overall focus goals. And awesome. All right, cool. I mean, if we can just work on kind of more solid play, then I think defending the all ins is going to be a really important part. Um, in terms of the macro cycle, just before I forget, just to add some kind of points there, often it's not very linear with Protoss, right? Because we're not always, not particularly linear for pylons. There will be points where it's like, hey, build units, build units, build pylons kind of thing. But essentially, the
Yeah.
way we want to split this up is like early game, they're all memorized. Now, that might mean like up to 45, 50 supply, you know, just when your pylons go down in your build. But
Yeah.
depending on how like defined you are with the build, that could go up to like 60, 70, something like that. But in general, like, have you read many guides? Like, do you read all things Protoss? Do you look at like Gemini's guides on there?
Um, no, I might have seen one or two of them, but I haven't looked at them myself.
Okay, cool. I mean, that's not bad at all because there's lots of stuff up there and good discussion on all things Protoss. But I always bring this up when I'm coaching a Protoss player, unless they're already like at least Diamond 1, because they will be so just like transcripts of the pro, how the pro does it, to the point where it's like there's a pylon on 96 supply that's like written in the build, and I'm like, yeah, okay, that's, you need to be in, like, even pro gamers, a lot of very good pro gamers won't even actually think of it that tight. So it's like it's beyond our APM, it's beyond our attention. Things need to be more adjusted to the situation and intuitively, oh yeah, I need pylons because I just did this, you know, past the early stage. So I would advise early game, they're all memorized. Where you cut that off is up to you. Don't go too deep. Past that point, there is obviously it's kind of like, hey, you're making lots of units, make some pylons. Making units make pylons, right? So I guess we can call that
Yeah.
your general macro cycle. But there are also important key points, or even just the most important key point, I would say, which covers so many scenarios, is a lot of pylons going down after your gateway explosion. And
Oh yeah.
likewise, not putting down a lot of pylons before your gateway explosion. for many Protoss players, a huge skill jump they make is literally just, oh, I used to have 50 free supply, then put my gateways down. Now I put my gateways down when I'm like 8 free supply or almost no free supply, you know, like really close to that supply block. And then I put all the pylons down as my production kicks up. So that's a key thing, which we can just always look for across all matchups, right? Unless you're playing pure Sky Toss or something like that, where you're not actually building gateways. That's probably the thing which it took me the longest to get really tight across all my Protoss matchups when I started playing Protoss. But once I got that down, and it's something I still pay attention to, where I'm like, I'll be like in a really messy early game because a Terran's done some crazy opening. And then I'll be like, just putting pylons down, make sure I don't get supply blocked. And there'll always be a point sometimes where I'm like, wait a second, I'm going to put down like 2 pylons. I'm like, wait, I've already got supply free. What am I doing? Like, I need my gateways down, or I'm gonna die to that stim push when it comes. You know, if I end up with 40 free supply and then put my gateways down, like I'm screwed. I'm like, oof, remind myself, okay, get the gateways down as they're finishing, build the pylons. And yeah, I think that's kind of just to answer that question with some dot points, which we can obviously revisit. In terms of defending aggression as well here in the document, are you doing a gate scout every game? Are you doing a probe scout after the pylon? When do you scout usually?
Normally I scout with a probe at the first time I put down the gateway.
Okay, so we're doing a gate scout every game, which is pretty safe. Obviously, we could do pylon if we want to be even earlier just to give ourselves more time to react, but this should be fine.
Yeah.
And PvZ is obviously just something we need to make sure. And just to add 2 dot points for that, the secret to PvZ, sharp timing attacks that are pre-planned whilst macroing up to the next big attack. And it's all about pre-planned attacks that have the potential to do good damage. Generally. So awesome. All right, let's get straight into looking at some replays and getting to see some more of your play style so that I can get in there. We're always a bit slower in the first coaching session because, you know, got to get familiar with your style and everything and figure it's better to set some proper goals first. But I am in chat channel Piggy. So if you just click on your chat box in BattleNet in the bottom right and just go /join space Piggy, Piggy. I'll type it to you on Discord.
Okay. Okay, through Discord, right?
I've typed it to you on Discord, so you could just copy paste that into BattleNet.
Okay.
Just put that into your chat box in BattleNet, and your in-game name is Sharkbot, right? Sharkboticus.
Yes.
Awesome. Sharkboticus. I am Sharkboticus. Yep. And if that doesn't work, I'm also in just Pig2. So you can just do /join space Pig2 as well.
Okay.
Once you get in there, you should see... Oh, I see ya. Beautiful. Beautiful. All right. I'm going to promote you to leader. Let's get a PvZ replay up. Since that's the matchup we probably want to start focusing on the most. Since that's the biggest problem. Either that or yeah, it doesn't really matter too much. If we could just grab any recent PvZ replay, go replays, watch with others, we'll get that on screen so I can start kind of passing some information and absorbing kind of how you're playing, just getting a feel for it. And while we look through that replay, we'll be able to talk about mechanics a little bit, and I'll review those right now while we're getting that set up.
Okay. I've got one relatively recent. I believe that one was full macro, no aggression from him.
Do you see how long the replay is on the when you click on it?
Yeah.
Awesome. Got that setting turned on. Yeah, go for it. Let's go watch with others. And that'll actually create like a replay lobby when you do watch with others. Since we're in a party, it'll invite me into it as well. Singularity. Okay. Thank you very much, Singularity, for the 44-month resub. What the hell? Thank you very much, mate. Coming up on 4 years.
I think this one would be a good example.
Fantastic. And I mean, it doesn't really matter too much anyway. As long as we're not dying on one base, I should get to see a fair amount of what's going on. Just right-click me in the lobby and go promote to lobby host. So not party leader, but lobby host. Awesome.
Okay.
All right, we are good to go. All right, so while that's going, I don't want you to look at this replay. Waste of time right now, okay? Do you
Okay.
have 2 monitors?
No, I don't.
Stay on the document for now, just for the moment. I'm going to be fast
Okay.
forwarding the replay and passing some info, but we're going to just read through those questions and then we can look back at the replay and have a nice little think about it.
Yeah.
Let me just get my hotkeys going. And let me turn my in-game sound down a little bit so that doesn't deafen us as we fast forward it. Awesome. Okay, cool. Your mouse and keyboard settings are the same as mine. DPI is on 1500. Okay. So a bit higher DPI, but that's fine. Cool.
Yeah, my old mouse used to be at 1800. And then it died from over-clicking, so...
As always happens eventually.
Yeah.
I've actually just got a new mouse. I gotta trade my current one out. Is still doing well, but I'm ready to replace it as soon as need be. So yeah, your clan's a bit inactive, so you haven't really been playing any practice games or custom games. That's one of the best things always, right? It's just having the repetitive match of a matchup against a human opponent. If you could play 7, 10 PvZs in a row against a friend and chat between the games as well, so you can really process the information. It's a little bit less adversarial. It's a bit more like punching the boxing bag, you know, just getting your practice down. So definitely, abandon those bitches if they're not coming online enough, and get some more practice. Always welcome to join my Discord if you need be, and chat to the guys in there. But there's heaps of different clans out there, and I am the worst person to know where they all hang out exactly. But there's always people in my Discord who are from many different clans who I'm sure would be happy to recruit you as well as my own one. Other than that, you do set camera hotkeys, but you're just using the 3 for your first 3 bases. Are you using like F1, F2, F3? What are you using for your cameras?
Yeah, I'm using F1, F2, and F3 for cameras.
Okay, cool. So what are you using for your select all army key and stuff?
F5 and idle workers is on F6.
Okay, so you use F5 all army, F6 idle workers. Cool thing about idle workers is you really don't need that key because it's so rare you press it. You can always just click the button next to your minimap. But F6 isn't using prime real estate anyway, so that's all cool.
Yeah.
You don't use alt much unless you mess your control groups up. You know how to use it. Most important for drops. If you're playing against Terrans who are dropping all over the place, that sort of thing, that's the main use for Protoss. Occasionally, as you get higher level, you'll play more Zergs that split up and attack multiple areas all the time, but should be fine as long as you know how it works. That's awesome. You've got 1 main army, 2 spellcasters. Okay, let me format this so it's a little easier to read in the document. 3 and 4 harass units, oracles, or warp prism. Yep. Mothership core in the old days. Don't we miss her? We miss her.
Yeah.
Oh, overcharging 4 pylons to defend an army. Those were the days.
You know, the Terrans and Zergs complain on Battle.net.
Yeah. I think we can definitely say that was a stronger version of Protoss. I miss being 6k MMR as Protoss. It was fun. I was objectively a much worse player, but I figured out how to use that thing. The maps were also just much simpler maps back then. There were lots of tight choke points and very easy to take third bases in the early Legacy of the Void. So yeah, it's pretty easy to just use Psy Storm and Force Fields if the opponent's only ever attacking from one angle.
Yeah.
All right. 5 is where you have a probe you go back to when you want to build. Okay, cool. 6 is for your Nexus. All of your Nexus on one control group, yeah? Cool. Just like most of us. Most pro gamers, Parting is the only one who does it differently that I've seen so far because he likes to manually know which one he's recalling to. But he actually doesn't even have all of his Nexus on a single control group because of that. So he literally goes and selects each Nexus to build probes, which is one of the strangest things ever. And he admitted, he's like, yeah, it's really weird. But he just never wanted to miss recall. Always wanted to make sure he popped to the right base instantly, and it works well for him. 7 Robo Stargates, Swap Gates are on W. This is a good control group setup. This is all fine. This is all perfectly fine. So mechanically, no giant red flags. There's nothing here that makes me go, oh, holy shit, what? This is terrible. There's nothing that needs like, okay, we gotta stop the bleeding here. This is good. This means we can just start talking about the matchups, looking at the build orders, and getting straight into the strategic side.
All right.
Okay, cool. So, first replay. I mean, this looks like a 12 pool. So, that's going to be more and more common since Lambo's been putting some guides out about it. So, yeah, let's just figure out our response against that. So, then we can go through and look at everything else that happens in this game. Cool. So, early on, you scouted the 12 pool and you pulled every single probe to the low ground. So,
yeah.
Was this ideal? What's your normal response? Is this it?
Not pulling all the probes. I tried to pull some of them. I just ended up pulling all the probes on my mineral line.
So you see the 12 pool at this point. You realize what's up as they're popping.
Yeah.
Fortunately, we do lose our probe. If we can block their natural, that can be nice with a probe. So you actually do get your wall off up. And you send every single probe, and then you send them back. So
yeah,
I think we could definitely see that's a big over response, right? Because these probes don't really end up doing anything for you. And we could just get a zealot out in time. Pretty much every single time. Honestly, I usually don't even pull probes until the gateway goes down. If they kill a gateway. And if they kill a gateway, I don't even really mind. But if we're going to pull probes, it should only be like 3 or 4 to help support that first zealot. So honestly, all we need to do is if you want to pull probes, pull just 4 probes, maybe 5. And make sure you put them on a control group whenever you pull probes is really, really important as well. But, so, let's look at your control groups. Okay, so you see it. About to put your Nexus down, you realize what's up. We go, oh shit. So you see your Zealot's very slow to start, and you've pulled these probes. So your Zealot should have been out well before those Zerglings got here, even though this is the shortest rush distance on the pool. So this is something where we could react a lot faster. Also, it's usually better if you keep the choke point next to that first gateway, because then the Zealots are popping out in the choke point, right? So they can reinforce each other easier, whereas your Zealot has to pop out and run to the other side of your wall. It's also easier if that opening is in the middle of your wall, just to make sure you have that opening nice and clean. Whereas if you do it on a corner like that, it can be hard to wall off behind it. So remember, you try to build a pylon behind this and you're struggling because you're like, ah. So in general, and I just always do this with a wall, always leave the opening in between the first 2 structures, which is your gate and your core normally. Just leave that structure. You can measure it out very easily, and it's going to work out a little bit better. So that would be my advice. Number 1, always leave the opening there. Get your Zealot plus second pylon started faster as well. Because we pulled all those probes, we don't even have money to start a second pylon, which is really bad because that means you're going to be supply blocked in a moment. If you build a single probe, you won't even be able to build a second Zealot. So this response here is just something you need to get a bit of practice with. And then even though you do leave some probes on the low ground, they're not control grouped. And those probes you brought down, you never control group those. Bringing workers into a fight is almost useless if you don't put them on a control group. So pull just 5 probes. Normally main army is 1. I think number 2 would be perfect, right? Your secondary, was it spellcasters normally on number 2?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that sounds, I mean, that's what, either that or 3 or 4, depending on whatever you're more comfortable with. But generally it's, you're usually just defending with a very early game scenario where you've only got 1 army group. It's going to be literally 1 Zealot that's not even out yet. So what do you think?
Yeah, putting them on 2 or 3 would be a good idea.
Make sure you choose it now so we can just actually reinforce that, because we've got to make sure it's the same thing every time so that it's muscle memory. Doesn't really matter what, it's purely what you think sounds good. So which one should I write down? Number 2 or 3?
Let's go with 2.
Let's go with 2. All right. Easy peasy. Makes it really easy to pull your workers back. A lot of the time you'll be fighting and there'll be a point in the middle of fighting with workers and your army that you go, oh, I'm winning this fight. And that's the point where you get those probes out of there. And if you do that well enough, a lot of the time you pull back and you got like 10 probes that are almost dead. But turns out an almost dead probe mines as well as a dead as a full life probe, right? So the difference between leaving your workers in the fight and not is absolutely massive. And this is something, yeah, a lot of players of every race could really benefit from being a bit better off in that regard. So so this could have been way easier, right? If we just had a zealot in the wall, pylons finishing, another zealot builds, make some adepts, easy peasy, right?
Yeah.
Second zealot, then adepts. Nexus before second gas as well, right? We don't want to be taking extra gases or our Nexus is like never going to get down. So, and I think that's what you do here. So because your units are starting late and we're supply blocked, that's why this is now we're having to build an extra layer of wall. So this is getting really hard. And once again, whenever it's on a corner like that, you see, we thought it was walled off. It's not. So you got to be really wary of those edges. Very, very wary of those. Thankfully, he's attacking the gateway. He could have just killed your zealot and probes there if he just surrounded them straight away. So we got a little lucky. But at the end of that, you are very, very far behind. So this is normally, I would say you're just dead at this point is like the could you come back? Absolutely. There's a crazy amount of room. Comeback room in StarCraft. But we are so far behind that, if we were just like in a ladder session, we wanted to play more games, we'd go, okay, review the defense, and then we'd just go do XYZ next time, exactly what we just wrote down in the document. So we know exactly. You see that list there in the document as well I've written. That's just 12 pool response. And that needs to just be something where, okay, I messed it up this time. Every time you mess up, this is the mental structure for learning. Write down what is the thing. Oh, it's a 12 pool. I don't think we need to write any special tells there. You know what it is. It's obvious for you. You spotted it. You responded. I could tell that. With a more vague situation, a more confusing one, you might want to add specific tells. But generally, it's like every exact step of what you want to do. Right down to, hey, let's make sure we don't mess up and go double gas Stargate and then never get our Nexus down or something like that, Let's make sure we write down all the steps of the reaction list, and we visualize ourselves doing that. Awesome. Now we have a set play, essentially, to pull out the next time we're in this scenario.
All right.
Cool. All right, so this game, you were in a really bad spot. But let's take a little look-see. So you do end up start expanding here in terms of the recovery. But notice we're not probing right now. So that's the most important thing that you should be doing in this scenario is probing nonstop. And you're very slow to start probing and to take your second gas. So when you're recovering, a lot of players struggle because it's different to their normal game. But basically, really important that you build a ton of probes. And a lot of players, see here once again, gap in probe production. You haven't saturated your gas. And a lot of players do this just queuing 1 or 2 probes at a time. I would be queuing probably 4 or 5, especially since it seems like you're about to focus on the depth pressure. So whenever you're going to enter a micro scenario, we should be doing other things. So what was the plan with these adepts here? It seemed like you were kind of umming and ahhing a little bit. We do finally go across. Was it just you felt like you needed to do some counter damage? So you're like, hey, let's just see if some adepts can do some stuff?
Yeah, pretty much. I figured that I held it off and maybe I could do something with the adepts to put some pressure on, hopefully make an opening for me to come back.
I like the idea. It took you a while to move across the map though, and you did it all underneath the Overlord's vision. So you gave him like 2 minutes to prepare basically. So check this out. You've got 5 adepts, which is already going to make him build quite a few lings probably. And then you're sitting right out front your base where Zerglings or Overlords can see you. And there's no urgency. So you see those adepts were warped in ages ago, but it took us forever to move across the map with them. So try to hide your move outs and then move out. And this is just like general rules for pressure. General rules. Hide your pressure. Move out ASAP, right? Once it's ready. One and done. What does that mean? That means don't rally units and waste APM.
Oh yeah.
Because you, after seeing 1,000 Zerglings and wisely not committing to your shade, you're still like start warping into adepts outside your wall, warping into adepts outside your wall. You should always be preparing for the next wave. And that's something else which I don't think we necessarily had in mind here. If we said, okay, I'm going to do this adept pressure. This is not glaive adepts. This is a made up counter pressure because the early game was scrappy because of the 12 pool, right? That doesn't mean it's
Yeah.
bad. It just means we know this is never going to kill someone. If we're really lucky and he's just super greedy, maybe we kill like 15 drones, it'd be awesome. But it's not likely. So in general, remember what I said earlier about PvZ. What is the general rule for PvZ? Sharp timing attacks that can kind of scale and do big damage, keep the Zerg honest. Likewise, if he's all inning you, it means you're like, whoa, get behind my wall. I've got units already, though, that were going to be used for my pressure. But it's go over to there and always have a next plan set up. Whereas for you, you're going robo, you're building a few sentries. But you'll notice we're not actually going in terms of any sharp tech or anything like that. And let's take a look at this and let's think about your normal build. So you've said your standard composition is Stalker, Immortal, into Charge Lot, Immortal, Archon. So
Yeah.
what's interesting is there's Stalker in there. So do you make Blink or it's just a few Stalkers in the early game? What are your Stalkers for in that army?
Mostly for defending until I can start getting into Charge Lot Immortal Archon.
Cool. So Stalkers are a super duper inefficient unit generally. If we're going to be going for them against Zerg, it's just Stalkers are just generally a unit we want to avoid unless we have a specific purpose for them. If we're really working on our Blink micro, we're doing mass Blink all-ins, that's good. We've seen Mutalisks and we like Blink as the response to that to do a big Blink push. Okay, sure. But otherwise, we should steer clear of Stalkers in general because they're incredibly hard to micro and get value out of. We don't want to be too focused on them. And I can see that across all three matchups, you're almost always opening up with Stalkers from the standard kind of compositional write-ups at least. So that might be something that we can get away from. A few Stalkers in the early game is never the worst thing, especially against Protoss or Terran, where those Stalkers, right? Obviously, Ling Speed's a problem. You can't really skirmish with them. Against Terran and Protoss, just 4, 6, maybe even 8 Stalkers as the beginning, totally fine. Against Terran, I would argue you probably don't want to go that many Stalkers. Absolute most 6, unless you're really good with your Blink control. But hey, if you're working your Blink control, that's fine. The important thing there is just to make sure we keep it kind of clear and direct. So the main thing is going to be Immortal, Charge, Archon, which means Charge is incredibly important. Immortals are very important. Those are the 2 power units, right? Charge will enable our Zealots, the Gateway Explosion, and the Immortals is just amazing anti-Roach, anti-Marauder, anti-Stalker, that sort of stuff. So the problem here is Robo on its own and a few gateways doesn't really lead to anything. So we can just look at your tech. You're still warping into depths outside your wall. That's what I'm talking about with wasting APM kind of thing. Like, hey, why are we still making adepts? We should be making Zealots. We should have a Twilight Council already down and making Charge because adepts just don't scale. Adepts are also like Stalkers. They're a very early game unit and they're just worse than Zealots in every way past a certain point in the game. Even slow Zealots actually beat adepts if the adepts aren't microed. So Zealots are just a way better cost unit, 25 less gas, a lot more raw damage. So at this point, we seem kind of stuck. Obviously, we had a bad early game, so we're a little behind. But it's important for us to always say, hey, when behind, we should actually play more decisively. And this is the opposite to 95% of the StarCraft player base. Everyone goes and plays worse when they're behind. But what you should be doing more is, well, let's even more so bank on one big attack, which we can see minutes ahead. If I look at this game, I don't see you heading in any one clear direction towards a push. So I think this is something where if you said, okay, I'm behind, let's distract with adepts. Behind this, I'm going for just 2 base minerals, no gases on my natural, 8 gateways, charge it all in with 2 immortals or something like that. Basically, the idea is some very simple plan and you just beeline towards that and then you go for one big all in. I'd be like, awesome, we're heading in a clear, cohesive direction. But in this game, am I correct in saying you seem like you're trying to figure out how to get towards the 3rd base, but you're kind of just like, oh, God, I'm so outnumbered and a bit of at a loss, essentially?
Yeah, I was definitely lost. And I was trying to get up a 3rd base as well.
Yeah. So try to just pick a simple plan and focus super hard on that. So
My man.
the idea, what would this have looked like in this scenario? Make a few adepts, do some pressure, but we want to have a hard cutoff point, right? In this game, it would have been 7 adepts, equals 7 adepts. I just suggested a charge lot immortal Archon, a charge lot immortal all in off 2 base. We could go to 3 base and do a big charge lot Archon immortal play. What sounds good to you? So let's go back to when you were first warping in, adept 6 and 7. This point. Let's imagine we're here. We're taking control as a player. We're going to go do this made up pressure. What do we do? What do we do behind this? So what sounds good to you? What's something that you feel next time you're in a similar scenario, you could go, okay, I'm going to try and do something with this pressure, and we're beelining towards X push to try and finish the game behind this. So any ideas?
I like the charge lot idea. I like charge lots in general.
So, okay. You like charge lots. Did you want to do it with a 3rd base, though? Did you want to try and get more gases up so you can add Archons? Do you want to do just charge lots, or do you want to do charge lots and Immortals?
Charge lots immortals.
Okay. Charge lots and Immortals. All right. So the thing is, Immortals don't cost that much gas. So you can actually stop. You can stop at about 32 probes with this. So you can fully pull off gas. Because, like, even at this point, check it out. You could make a Robo and a Twilight. How much gas is that off the top of your head?
Robo and Twilight, that's 200.
Yep. That leaves you with 160, right? So how much is charge?
100.
That means you got
At least
60
in terms
left.
of gas.
Yep, just in gas. That's all we care about. Okay, so how much is 2 Immortals?
2 immortals, 200 gas.
So we're 140 gas short. So at this point in the game, your natural hasn't even finished. You only need to mine 140 more gas. It's less than a minute's gas mining. So you can pull completely off gas and just put those workers on the minerals on your natural before 6 minutes 30. So we're distracting him with the depths. Check that out. So distract with the adepts. We're going to go 32 probes, fully pull off gas. So it's basically just what? Twilight plus Robo should go down together, right? We're going to go charge plus 2 Immortals plus a Prism. What are we going to go? 8 gateways? Maybe 10 gateways. Let's say 9 or 10 gateways, something like that. You always want a little bit more if you're just building zealots. Let's say 8 to 10. Depends how tight you are in the build. 8 to 10 gateways total. Bunch of pylons. And go smack a bitch. Very technical attack, which is literally it. It's attack move. It's, maybe don't lose the warp prism. Try to focus your models on roaches. Maybe pull your zealots back if they're running into a choke point sometimes. But for the most part, it's big surprise maneuver. That's cool. Yeah. It's nice to have a simple all in like that you can go to when you're behind. It's just such a simplistic plan. You don't need, you actually cut probes so surprisingly early, just 32 probes. We only need 8 more probes in this game to fully saturate both mineral lines. And it gives you something where you're not continuing to warp in adepts. We know we're saving all our gas for that, so we're not making any sentries or stalkers. It's just going to be zealots and immortals. We know what we're heading towards behind it. So say we're microing adepts and we miss macro a bit. Really natural, right? We're like, okay, I'm over here. There's lots of lings, blah, blah, blah. But you're going to go home and you're going to go, cool, my Robo Twilight's finished. Start an Immortal, start charge or something like that. Okay, it's time to pull off gas. Let's pull those guys off gas, put them on the natural. Don't have money for a gateway explosion. Go back, micro the adepts. They're all dead. That sucks. Damn, that's no good. I got 800 minerals. Put down 6 gateways, something like that. So it's really cool because you just have this very clear, cohesive plan. Whereas in this game, we're like, make a few adepts, make a few sentries, make an observer. And we're just not progressing quite as quickly as we could in one clear direction, which we need to be. The other thing is we did see like 100 Zerglings. So these adepts staying around past the first shade is absolute insanity. Just looking at that number of Zerglings, remember these are not glaive adepts. If I were you here, I might have done what you did and tried to continue the pressure, but the way I would have done it is just a little different. So I would have left them in this corner. See where I signaled on the minimap?
Give me a minute. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I would just sit them in that corner and I would threaten shading up into the main and natural. So they at least can't be surrounded there. Like maybe 6 Zerglings could attack them at a time. But if you just run around in the open the way you did, you're absolutely you're gift wrapping these adepts.
Yeah.
Which is just a little unfortunate. Because the thing is, while your adepts were present, he stopped macroing. He started building a few roaches, but he was supply blocked. He's freaking out a little bit. So the adepts did do something. If we had a bit of a clearer follow-up, if we didn't throw the adepts away quite when we did, absolute chances to do some awesome follow-up. And in general, firm, strong ground attacks, one of the best ways to kill Zerg players. So if we can always have charge auto model Archon timings, glaive adept pressures, charge lot pressures, that sort of stuff, I'm always going to be favoring over, say, doing a 2 adept drop or flying an oracle in and trying to pick off workers. Because those things are very micro intensive, APM intensive, for very low payoff potential. Whereas you hit with 8 glaive adepts, you hit with a big charge lot attack, you can actually, if they're not prepared, you'll win the game. You will kill a crazy amount of stuff. So that's what we always want to set up for, because Zerg players are generally going to go a bit harder on the greed or a bit harder on the aggression. And if we're going for big firm pushes ourselves, it kind of counters both options, because we're building army nice and fast so we can kill greedy people and we can survive against the more aggressive all-in Zerg players.
All right.
Awesome sauce. All right, so obviously this replay is a bit of a, doesn't matter too much. Can we find another PvZ replay? Let's hop out of that one because we fell way behind versus the 12 pool. Lambo actually rated us up. Big thank you, Lambo, for the raid on the stream today, mate. Stop teaching people how to 12 pool. Stop it. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Thank you, Splurch, for the 277 view, for the 8-month resub as well. Appreciate that, guys. Thank you. Yeah, so hop out of that replay, mate, and let's see if we can find another PvZ replay to look at, shall we? Or if you want, we could play a live game. But just looking at your notes, we didn't really have like a build write-up other than just 1 gate expand. So
yeah.
We didn't. I imagine the build order is probably a little bit loose. Probably needs quite a bit more definition in terms of what we do after the 1 gate expand. Like I said, we need some sort of sharp pressure timing. Sharp pressure timing into a decisive timing attack to finish the game.
I know I have some. There's one other. It's a completely different type of aggression that he did. I lost to him the first time, and I played him again, and I ended up beating him.
Awesome. If the Zerg's playing passive, what is your normal? Do you do any harassment normally off your 1 gate expand, or are you just very defensive as a player?
I'm very defensive as a player. Though usually if they sit back, I end up completely blasting them.
Right. But there's normally no Oracle harassment, no Adepts, anything like that?
No.
Okay. That's going to need to change. 1 firm, sharp pressure, whether that be a Glaive Adept, an Archon drop, a Charge Lot drop. There's going to be something that we mix into the build, whatever it be. Because otherwise we are playing a non-interactive game, which does not serve us well in the long run. If you look at stats, constantly harassing his opponents, constantly scouting them through that harassment. And that's what we want to channel our play after. So if you got that replay?
Yeah. I guess I'll pull up the one that I lost.
Sure.
Okay. Be host. All right.
Beautiful. All right. So yeah, so after this, I think we'll get straight into practicing something. So what sort of pressure Just sounds good to you. Archon drop, Glaive Adept, or obviously it's DTs into Archons, Glaive Adept, or a charge drop.
I guess a charge drop, if I'm going to be going into charge lots initially.
Yeah, I mean they're all good anyway. They're all absolutely good. So it just depends what sounds like the most enjoyable for you to execute and micro and that sort of stuff. So you're going Oracle this game.
Oh, this one. Oh, I think. Oh yeah, this is when I was doing Stargate stuff, or just rush up into high tier Stargate stuff. I stopped doing it because I started just losing a ton of games, and I thought, well, maybe we should stop with this strat that isn't really working out.
Yeah, definitely way too many different kind of random things we focused on in this game. So you made lots of oracles, which is a light harassment unit, and you didn't really use them for much. And then you kind of went lots of cannons and batteries, but you didn't really have anything to support it. You spent money on Stalker Sentry, which doesn't mesh with a gas build, with a Stargate build, because that's where your gas is meant to be going, right? If you just had Void Rays, you could have easily defended this attack. So this, to me, looks like you just didn't have a build order. So that's, I mean, yeah, I think that's the big thing. So honestly, considering you haven't been doing any pressure or anything, I think you've had openings, but you haven't had build orders. So the difference is, and a lot of players have this, they open the game with a nice set first few minutes, and from there it's very freestyle. There is a general tech or composition they head towards, there are some patterns they follow, but it can all be defined to a way higher level, and that's a game changer. It just... And a lot of people struggle with this, I think, because of the flexible nature of StarCraft, right? Because you want to be... They're like, but I want to be adapting and reacting and so on. So, you know, just having everything mapped out doesn't make sense. And it's almost like, well, it's a reflexive thing. It's kind of like a flow chart, or I like to give the analogy of like a tree, where you have like, okay, here's the most standard path, where I have like defined when I get my robos, when I get my forges and so on. But there will be branches. If they're doing this, I need to go down the verse 12 pool branch. That's kind of what that mini little branch that we wrote in the document was before, where it was talking about how to defend the 12 pool. We're doing, okay, off the exact same one gate opening, we're doing Stargate instead. Okay, cool, we need to have that branch. But you went Stalker Sentry into a really late Stargate, right? So we didn't really play a well-defined branch of that. So that's just kind of what went on there. So we need to really map that out. And we're starting always reverse engineering. We always go, what do we want to do? And we go backwards. So we want to play charge on a Mortal Archon. We want to do a sharp pressure. And then we said, okay, cool, let's do it. So we're going to do a charge drop. So hop out of that replay and let's learn a build. So this is going to very much be in the line of what you'll see in a Glaive Adept pressure or a DT Archon drop, in that it'll be a very similar build order, but it's budget as all heck. And it's going to allow us to get up a 3 base economy. Make me a party leader.
Okay. Let's see. Promote to leader.
Alrighty then. We have a very easy economic focus Zerg AI. Very hard to play against. Let's go. So let's do your standard opening to start, and then we are going to go Twilight Robo and head towards a drop. This should be good. Okay. So here we go. 12 pool. I'm going to write this up at the top of our notes for today. PvZ, charge drop into, it's a 4-gate charge drop into Immortal Archon charge.
Game paused.
All right. First things first. We are obsessed with making stalkers. This is against Zerg. Stalkers are very good if they come with some roach attacks, but outside of that, they're not particularly useful, and we're going to need to see if those attacks come ahead of time in general. We should always be trying to adept scout as a player generally. Now, that's something we might suck at for now, but I'd still like us to make an adept before a stalker first if we can. Move it across the map, and then just bring it home. In this game, let's not worry about it. Let's just go adept, then stalker afterwards, if we can, just to get used to that. And that's gonna be some. I'm just gonna write this under little changes. So adept before stalker. Once we get comfy with the build, we can go across and check for, what do we check for with an adept? Very obvious, third base, third hatchery, plus do they have drones on their natural? Because if they don't, we better obviously build a lot of defense. For now, clear your mind of that. Imagine your mind is a chalkboard. We don't give a shit about it. All you're doing, adept. So cancel the stalker, make an adept, and let's keep macroing. So you've just finished saturating your main. You're going to need to saturate. You need to rally both Nexi to your natural, and then we're going to go for a Twilight and then a Robo as we get the money for it. All good?
Okay.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
Game resumed.
Glory to the Daylom.
We can build our Robo in the wall, yeah. So it could have been a Stalker after the first Adept if you want. Doesn't really matter too much. For now, just keep probing. And we'll get Charge started once that Twilight finishes. Next thing on the menu is we're going to need 3 gateways in the main. So you've queued up quite a few probes, which is great. So now we can pull a probe over in the main and put 3 gateways down as we get the cash for it. And those need to start before the Warp Prism.
Okay, so 3?
Yep. That'll bring us up to a total of 4. Fantastic. Now start the Warp Prism. So you see you're always a little shy of money for the Prism immediately, but we'll get it a few seconds after. And chrono the Prism. Alright. Build an extra pylon in the wall. And then build an extra 2 pylons after that as well.
Your research has concluded.
Okay, so 2 more pylons. Okay, and when this prism pops out, we're going to have our gateways finish at about the same time. We're going to warp in 4 zealots once those gateways are finished. It's about 15 seconds away. For now, send a probe to your 3rd base. So let's get ready to take the expand. So 1 adept can go to the 3rd, and 1 can stay in the natural wall. All right, looking good. So let's get a 3rd nexus started. Notice this is a really early 3rd. If it gets cancelled, doesn't matter. Let's warp in those 4 zealots at the front, get them in the prism, get that prism on its control group, and get that flying across the map. And the goal here is that's going to go drop those in the main base and warp in another 4 zealots with it. In the meantime, what are we doing? Probes! So, build a 2nd Robo and a Forge.
Research complete.
Take the... Yep. And start building an Observer on your Robo. Awesome. Now let's go do the drop. So we're looking good. So let's tell that to go into warp in mode immediately, then tell it to unload. Go, go, go. Yep. Warp in 4 zealots as well. Slight supply block, not the end of the world. That's fine.
Yeah.
We normally are meant to put a pylon down on our 3rd nexus as well. Cool. Zealots are doing stuff. All right. Now click your zealots home. That's just so it doesn't win the game for us, so we can keep practicing our build.
Okay.
And let's go. So what do we need? Immortal production, +1 attack, and sentries. Sentries are our only scouting. We still don't have a pylon on that 3rd base, so remember to put that down the moment the nexus starts, always, so we have warp in points there. but it should be
Yeah.
Immortals, +1 attack, sentries. And those sentries are our scouting. Yeah, because they give us hallucinate. Now at this point, suddenly you're out of gas. So double gas on the natural, as well as rally everything over to your third. You can already put workers on those gases straight away. Just batch it up. Show me how you'd put workers on those. Beautiful. Rally everything over to the third. Looking good. Okay. Oh, you know what? We don't know if we're going to die, do we? We're building immortals. That's good. What else should we do? More pylons and our gateway explosion. 4 more gateways need to go down. 4 or 5 more gateways, right?
All right.
So gateways first and then the pylon explosion.
All right.
If you like building a wall at your third base, you can do that. But obviously we haven't set up for it this game. These are things you can add.
All right. All right. Might as well chrono. So just more zealots.
Yep. And obviously, what did we forget? Pylons after the gateways.
Oh yeah, I forgot about those.
Yeah. So you made it a bit harder for yourself. Your buildings on the left pylon in your main are fantastic. The other pylon, you built your robo and your forge in really bad positions. So they're blocking your production space, where we could have built so many buildings like on your other pylon. So where's the Templar Archives? Where the gases? Come on, just real logical stuff from here. Whatever you feel like doing, but we're probably just going to go full 3 base. So Templar Archives, we should be making zealots, get the gases on the third, non-stop immortal production. We've got lots of money. Just do logical macro from here. Where are those pylons? Remember, you went up to 8 gateways, double robo. You needed to build like 5-6 pylons at once. And at this point, yeah, it's nice to build them spotting around, but you can just build 4 or 5 in a nugget. The only important spot for you to put pylons right now would be those gateways in the main, which still only have 1 pylon powering most of them.
Yeah.
So that's actually a way more important area to put extra pylons at. But don't worry about putting all these spotting pylons out. Just keep your production up. Still haven't got the gases on our third base.
You have already gathered.
Oh yes.
And we should be at 12 gateways by now. So let's build that gateway wall at our third. 4 gateways on the top of our third. Because when you're on 3 full bases building Zealot and Mortal Archon, you can absolutely go 12 gateways. Especially if your production's not perfect.
Yeah.
We overbuilt probes. You're still building workers. You've already built about 10 probes more than you need.
Okay.
You arguably could have stopped about 20 probes ago. Because unless you have a fast 4th base, look at your main. By 9 minutes, your main base is half mined out. So we've got 8 extra workers there. And our third has 8 extra workers. So unless you have a 4th mineral line to put those 16 workers on, we actually want to stop at about 60 workers normally.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. This makes much Immortal, much Charge, much Archon. Obviously, you could add Psystorm to this. Normally, though, what you do with the finishing pieces with any Immortal Charge Archon army, right, is the same thing as always. Notice we got supply blocked again. So don't be afraid. When you get up to 3 base economy, just drop 7 pylons at once. Like, don't be afraid to do that. If you've got thousands of minerals, don't be pedantic with that stuff. If you've got no money and you're macroing well, building 8 pylons at once at 60 supply is really stupid, right? But once you're at above 100 supply, 3 bases mining, 700 minerals doesn't cost you anything. You've got tons of stuff. But normally the last thing you add in would be Archons. Notice you've got all this gas that naturally banks up.
Yeah.
So that's something where a lot of the time you will just make like 5 Archons or even 6 Archons off your 12 gateways as you max out. That being said, we don't want to just be maxing out. We want to be killing our opponent well before then. If we're just waiting to max, that is at its heart us not playing StarCraft strategy, because we're playing, I'm going to max out my army, rather than thinking about when is a good time to attack, when our army is good, when it's bad. we're letting the game decide for us by saying, well, you can't build more units. I guess you have to use them. And that generally is like steering our brain away from actually understanding what the hell's going on in the game. So let's try to make sure we go at a sharp, hard timing. Let's choose one. So you've got the zealot drop that you opened up with early in the game. You go with 8 zealots that should try to hit at about 5 minutes. What can we do after that? Obviously, there is unlimited APM for zealot drops that you could do. But I'm talking about a proper attack. I'm not talking about us getting in the weeds of maybe I should do a 4 zealot drop here or there. When do we choose a point to attack with this army? Maybe let's spitball. Obviously, it depends on how you look at what's going on. But I would say stop at 66 probes, 12 gates every game. So 3 bases, 12 gates.
Okay.
6. How about we say 6 immortal timing? 6 immortal timing attack.
Okay.
And obviously the idea is it's up to you based on your own game sense and everything and scouting and whatever else. How many rounds of zealots with that? How many archons with that? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, I'm going to wait for one more round because then I'll be able to add 5 archons and he's got lots of Ling Bane and archons will be great versus that. Or, hey, this guy's got next to nothing. Let's go now. That's it. That's your timing attack. You now have a decisive way of killing the whiny little Zerg player. Oh, you're unfair. Protoss attacking me. We want to hear lots of people talk about how unfair and A-movie your army is. How can we make that better? What are some cool things we can do? Well, your Prism can go in the main at the same time. Or you can just A-move 10 to 15 zealots to attack the opposite flank. So, how about right now, your whole army is on 1. Your Warp Prism is on both 2 and 3. Which one of those is it going to stay on, 2 or 3?
I'm going to keep it on 3.
Okay.
Oh, whoops. I had my army selected.
So, show me that zealot run by I just talked about. Send 10 to 15 zealots to the attack the flank. So, box a bunch of zealots, Alt 2.
Oh, yeah.
And send those down one side of the map while the rest of your army goes down the other side and sync them up for an attack. Not every zealot.
Yeah.
No. I mean, we want to set up for an actual attack with our main army. I'm not saying just send zealots everywhere. I want you to actually time this out.
Yeah.
So I want you to set up your control groups. So
I'll do that for now.
So if this was a real game, these zealots have just run into his army and they've all died. Your main army is not doing anything. Your other zealots are in the middle of the map right next to your main army. So this is not extreme flanks of the map. These zealots on the south, that's not... Go home with your whole army. That was gross. There's no one to punish this. Don't do that again. Let's go back to your side of the map. Do that again. But actually think about... There's a real Zerg. He's got overlords. He's got units out there. He's got creep. You got to send the zealot counter around the very edge of the map. Use shift command, use attack commands, queue those zealots along the very edges. And the thing is, often what you'll do is you send them maybe halfway across the map down to wait on the very edge on a control group. And then your main army gets in position, and that's when you send the zealots in at the same time as your army goes in. But this is one of the most powerful things you should be doing in every matchup as a player who's playing a charge lot style, because zealots are a melee unit. And melee units suck at actually engaging in giant fights unless they have a big surround. If they don't have a big surround, melee units can't get the surface area. They all get stuck behind each other. They all derp around. So that's why the power of run-bys is huge. So I want you to get used to this. It doesn't have to be a fancy Warp Prism drop in the main or anything like that. If you want to do that, you can. But the main thing is get your army moving across one flank of the map, the zealots moving in the other. So your zealots just attacked his base, your army's still at home. Pull those zealots back, way back along the edges of the map. Get your army going forward for an attack, and then move those zealots in. And when you start doing this so that you're correctly setting up a 1-2 punch or an identically timed double punch, it's beautiful. And you're looking over there. You don't even need to look at those zealots. So why is our screen down here? What's your main army? That's the most important part.
Okay, yeah.
So here's another trick. Hallucinate ahead of your army. Always. That's what these 4 sentries are for, is so you can spam Hallucinated Phoenix for scouting earlier in the game. But even when you're pushing, send Hallucinated Phoenix above their ground army. Go find where they're... Oh, he's got a bunch of Roach Hydra here. Awesome. go for your two-pronged attack. We feel confident. Let's go for it. So
Attack with main army first. And
yep, and it's up to
then,
you. Sometimes you can go with the zealots first. As long as they're attacking very close together, it's always going to be hard for your opponent to deal with. But the thing is, you could actually do this. Perfect. This was so much better. If they have a better army than you, this is a game winner.
I'm going to have to turn down the volume. It seems to be...
Oh, please do. Please do. Yeah, you're probably playing with way too loud game volume. I have multiple people who I coach, and they're like, oh, I can't hear you. And I'm like, why not? And they're like, game sound. And I'm like, turn it down permanently for when you're playing as well. It shouldn't be deafening you. A lot of people, especially Protoss noises, get out of control. So pull back with your army, but this is so much better. So imagine if there's an army here that you can't engage, you can still move your army up to it because you're very mobile with this. Say he's got lurkers, and you can go, ooh, you can pretend you're about to attack him, force his attention up here, and those zealots can go in and do massive damage. And this is something you can do over and over again against, even when a player has a better army than you, just to smash with them. By the way, there's been a changeling. Yeah, that guy's been... I didn't realize the AI made changelings, but this guy keeps dropping changelings and putting them with your army, which is funny. But that's awesome. So that's all good. You can always do two-pronged attacks. That's nice. It's a little bit of fanciness. What's more important is I need you to benchmark your attack, okay? So what that means is, because like I said, I don't want you ever to be hitting at max. I want you to be hitting well before max always. Otherwise, it's a sign you're just sitting on your ass not doing enough. So you need to write down worker count, upgrades. We never made +2 this game. Supply, exact unit count, gate count, everything. And the most important thing is always going to be game timer. So the game timer that your attack hits. So not when I max out or when I have a good army that leaves my base, but when you actually start fighting, pause just as the fighting starts, just before anything dies. And that is what you should benchmark. And I want you to write those down. And what that gives you is a really clear piece of feedback on how well you macroed, how well you executed your build, and how quick you turn that into an attack to kill your opponent. And that is the most powerful thing that you're gonna get here. And the great thing about this is a building block. If we want to go back towards more super defensive play, I mean, this is already pretty defensive. You're taking a long time going, just a charge lot drop into 3 base double robo 12 gate. Like, this is a big macro push. But it's going to be a great building block for you as a player because we have something to disrupt the Zerg to do big potential damage with the Zealots early. And then it's like, man, we are just going to build towards a timing attack. And we've got a very clear way of you saying, I did good or I did bad. Based off that timer, you will hit the best benchmark of your life one game so far, so many units, and you will still lose. And you should still feel good about that because you see that you did well. Your opponent strategically maybe countered your build or played better, but it gives you something outside of that victory screen so you can always see whether, how successful you're being. It's so huge, man. It's awesome. It's awesome. So that benchmark is going to be great for you. I want you to just keep trying to improve, not off of some perfect ideal time from a stats replay where he does this, but based off of our own game to game. One foot in front of the other, and, improvement's inevitable.
You have already
all right.
all that field's mineral.
Awesome. All right, well, we are out of time for the first sesh, but I hope that gives you some really clear direction in this matchup. If you want, you can absolutely take this same idea of, hey, let's get a clear timing attack for our other matchups as well, or let's get some form of opening pressure. I think it's a one-size-fits-all way to get better at StarCraft, almost with any race, but really for especially very macro-centric players, is, hey, let's get more a bit of harassment built in early on. Wave 1, Wave 2, big giant push to go kill them, define it, benchmark it, try to improve it, and and I'm really looking forward to working on you to follow up this build and this kind of direction in this matchup, but also hopefully we can talk about the other matchups as well. So anytime something doesn't make sense on the ladder, something makes you angry, if you're leaving games confused, scratching your head, write it down, save the replay, label that replay so that we can look at it in the future sessions, because those are the ones where we can really do some good learning. I think the best thing you can do as like a Sherlock Holmes of StarCraft is whenever anything leaves you angry or scratching your head in confusion, that's the thing we need to focus on. So keep that in mind, and that should give us heaps of material to work on over the coming weeks.
All right.
Awesome sauce. All right, mate. Well, let me know if anything in the notes doesn't make sense. If that's confusing, shoot me a message on Discord with any little follow-ups, and just shoot me a message whenever you feel like you know when you want to set up the next one. Some people do once a week, some once a month. Everyone plays at their own pace. So just shoot me a message in a day or two, a couple days when you've digested the info, and let me know when you want to set it up.
Okay.
Awesome. All right. Good luck on the ladder, mate. And yeah, hopefully we get some salty Zergs.
All right.
All right. Good night, mate. I'll catch you next time.
You too.